Okay, so let me explain why I've been gone for so long. Not that anybody cares. It's actually very simple. I'm gonna simplify it. Me have ADHD, me procrastinate, me get busy in life, me not record, me get overwhelmed by not liking intro, so no more record. Me not record for a month. Me feel immense guilt for not recording, me record. All right, let's get started. Loves TV. Yes, I made a theme song so that I can talk about all my favorite shows. Oh yeah. And this is just your disclaimer that this is not me talking about any of the actors themselves, but more so their characters. Please do not attack me in the comments. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, even those who disagree with me. But let's keep it friendly. All right, let's get started with the show. We're back with another installment of me clocking Emily for all of her toxic mom behavior. But before we begin, I always try to start off with a trigger warning just to make sure that everybody who's watching knows exactly what they're about to watch. So here's your trigger warning. Toxic mom mentions, toxic parenting mentions, and abuse mentions. In episode 1, listen to how Emily tries to get an apology out of Lorelai. Notice how Emily's gifts are always stuff that doesn't quite fit Lorelai's personality. Emily is so pissed about them calling off the engagement, but it's literally none of her business. And see how Lorelai comes back and apologizes for her reaction and Emily never does? It's amazing. In episode 2, Emily is stonewalling. In an article by Carly Snyder, a perinatal psychiatrist, talking about how stonewalling can hurt your relationship, it says, stonewalling is broadly described by the following behaviors: a general discomfort in discussing feelings, dismissing or minimizing the other person's concerns, refusing to respond to questions, refusing to make eye contact or offer nonverbal communication cues, walking away from discussions that cause stress. In the article, they go on to say, stonewalling is rarely effective, and if it becomes a habit, it can reduce a couple's ability to resolve conflicts or interact intimately. Now, we're not talking about our intimate relationship. Okay, I already know that. What I love even more about this article is the way that it gives even more examples about stonewalling. Another example of stonewalling can be ignoring what the other person is saying, changing the subject to avoid an uncomfortable topic, storming off without a word, coming up with reasons not to talk, refusing to answer questions, making accusations rather than talking about the current problem, using dismissive body language such as rolling or closing their eyes, engaging in passive-aggressive behavior such as stalling or procrastinating to avoid talking about a problem, and refusing to ever acknowledge the stonewalling behavior in general. I think a lot of people experience this when they deal with toxic parents, because after a while, especially if you have become either the scapegoat, and this is just my personal opinion, this is not like obviously a professional opinion, but once they start to realize that you can't be manipulated as easily as everyone else, or that you are harder to force into whatever they want you to do, stonewalling is definitely like one of the first things I feel like they turn to. It's almost like just a complete shutdown. They pretend as though you don't exist, as though the problem doesn't exist, and I feel like it just creates an even bigger divide, because in a parent position, I feel like you're reinforcing the idea that you are not a safe person to talk to, which inevitably causes the disconnect between a parent and child. The reason that Emily stonewalling actually matters a lot more than what people may realize is because it is such a important and great indicator as to what Lorelai dealt with growing up. And when you understand how stonewalling affects children, you understand that this is very damaging. And even Lorelai has mentioned this plenty of times. Like, one of the most notorious times when she's mentioned being ignored by Emily after Emily feels like she can't control her is in the episode where Rory has her birthday party. And at the end of the party, her and Emily get into that whole fight. That is her telling her, like, you're still doing the same things to me now that you did to me as a child. You're doing the same things to my child. Let me show you guys what I found out about what stonewalling actually does to the brain. In an article on toxicties.com, Kipling Williams, who is a professor of psychology at Purdue University, stated, the silent treatment, even if it's brief, activates the anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain that detects physical pain. The initial pain is the same, regardless of whether the exclusion is by strangers, close friends, or enemies. So essentially, her stonewalling Lorelai is actually putting her in physical pain. And what does Lorelai do as a result? Lorelai repeats the same behavior. Like, some people are probably gonna hear this and they're gonna be like, oh, well, okay, well, if you're saying that's such a bad thing, Lorelai does the same thing. She's done it to Rory. She does that. She avoids things. She's a big avoider. And you're right. But oftentimes when people are like that, they learn that from someone else. Emily. And it's very possible that Emily also learned this behavior from her parents. But as I always say, this is an issue with a limited perspective, because when you're not able to see certain things or when things are out of context, there is such a severe lack of sympathy. The article also describes what you can do if you find yourself in a similar situation. And it's going to be something that you may think is not effective, but it's really the best thing you can do, which is just not engage. When Emily says, "Is the place dirty?" that's a dig. Then she explains everything to Lorelai as though she hasn't been running the inn for years. I don't understand why Emily should be mad. Why would Lorelai just stand there and be talked to like a child, and then she acts as though her life has changed in any way because they broke up? And it's really funny how reading in front of people is rude up until it's time to gossip. She literally proceeds to read right in front of them. Then Emily takes another shot at Lorelai, saying at least she has a husband to kill. I feel like that's so inconsiderate. Like, your daughter just called off her wedding and you're torturing her about it? Like, I don't get it. I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision to make. Then Emily wants to have lunch, and I was like, of course there's an agenda. I don't really see how people look at Francie and Paris as villains when they have very similar manipulation styles to Emily. They basically pressure and corner people into submission. Emily does it by using a calm tone, but it's accompanied by her making intense eye contact and using words that have double meaning. Emily wiping the seat before she sits down is her silent way of saying once again that she thinks Luke's is dirty. And this scene is where my brain was just dinging off like, I know better than Lorelai alert, I know better than Lorelai alert. Emily doesn't care who she hurts as long as she gets what she wants. She's overstepping Lorelai's boundaries. And what about the child that's involved in this? Like, it's not just about Rory. It's not about Lorelai's happiness. It's about her being able to look good in front of her friends. I feel it's reinforced that Rory has this infantilized view of Emily when she tells Lorelai that Emily thought she was helping, which is why Lorelai says, "You do know there is no Santa Claus, right?" Lorelai reveals that Emily has had maids deported, which let Ross take it over.
On the other hand, if she wasn't kidding, she's not fun, she's stupid and kind of a racist.
I feel like it's not shocking that Lorelai doesn't believe Emily when she says that she didn't invite Chris, because it's so on brand. In episode 5, I feel like this made all the sense to me. I mean, like, of course Lorelai doesn't want to involve Emily in finding out some guy's number, because look what happened. Like, what happened is exactly why she doesn't want to do that. Emily ends up taking a small date and turning it into the end of the world by trying to force her to keep dating someone that she's already stated she's not interested in. I hated this whole thing because once again, she made Lorelai feel like she was a bad daughter just for not having the same interest as her. Like, that's basically what it is when you boil it down. Because just give me one good reason why her continuing to date this boy was this important. In episode 8, Richard is manipulating Rory and everyone else, but we're gonna get into that. We're gonna get into that a little bit later. So this is the part of the video where I'm gonna warn you guys, at some points in a lot of these episodes, it sent me into a rant because I'm really connected to this whole thing, and I just have a lot of passion for this whole subject. I don't like to see people get manipulated. I don't like to see people tormented and abused and stuff like that. So it just really invokes a lot of passionate talking. Okay, I'm not screaming at you. Love you. Okay, so the thing about episode 9 that really had me upset is the fact that Emily keeps on preaching this, I want a buddy relationship with my daughter. But then, like, she treats her daughter like their relationship is a business transaction. Every time that she gives Lorelai anything, it comes with a price. None of her love, support, or admiration is without her wanting something in return. Does she help out Lorelai with her termites? Yeah, so she can overstep and host her DAR meetings without having to ask Lorelai. She pays for Chilton? She demands that you have dinner and attend every single Friday, even when you have other obligations and, I don't know, a life. She throws Rory a birthday party? It must be at her house. She pays for the party? She must tell you how much it cost her, right when you're in the middle of telling her how she hurt your feelings. She paid for the party. There's no way you could be offended. There's no way you could have your own emotions and you could have feelings about how I'm treating you. There's no way you could have a problem with still being talked to crazy. Nothing is without reminder that Lorelai owes her for breathing, that everyone around her should be forever in debt to her just because she does anything that is remotely caring. She needs a reward each time and a pat on the forehead just for being a semi-decent mother. It's maddening. Do I think being a mom is hard? Yes. Do I think mothers deserve to feel appreciated? Yes. But children should not owe their parents just for being children. Also, is it completely outrageous that Lorelai would believe that they tried to manipulate Rory into going to Yale? I mean, this is just like when Christopher showed up and Lorelai thought Emily invited him over. Neither situations are without reason or recent evidence to back them up. The facts are there. The proof that Emily cannot be trusted to respect anything that Lorelai says is there. In episode 10, in this episode, Emily once again shows us that she doesn't value Lorelai's boundaries, because while she's in panic over Trix coming to visit, she just shows up and goes to Lorelai's house and, decides that she's gonna make things right in Lorelai's home. And what does Lorelai do? She helps her mom and gives her advice even as her mom is still insulting her stuff. This episode is a lot about perception and manipulation. You can hear it with the way that Rory is standing up for herself against Francie, and it's reconfirmed through dialogue as Lorelai and Trix walk into the Independence Inn, and Trix says small. Lorelai corrects her and says quaint, and Trix says touche. Almost a way to say that it really just depends on how you look at it. In episode 11, Emily barely lets Lorelai get a word in. Lorelai and Emily both made good points. I do think Emily should be respectful and a bit kinder to her maids, but to be fair, if you hire someone to cut the grass and they only do one side of the lawn after being asked repeatedly to cut it the right way, why would you keep them on? But then, like, my version of that would have been like trying to, kind of talk to them, figure out what's going on first, not just jumping the gun immediately. So here's my issue with the deposition. Lorelai gives the deposition, which she did not want to do and made clear that she didn't want to do and rightfully shouldn't have had to do. I feel like Lorelai was right for not wanting to help Emily out because Emily only uses the we're family thing when it's convenient for her. Lorelai has openly talked about how when she was pregnant, her parents were ashamed of her and basically tried to hide her and her pregnancy from everyone. It wasn't about family then, it was once again about how Emily looks to the outside world. We keep running into the same situation, and I don't know how to better point this stuff out. Everything that Emily does is centered around wanting to look good in front of other people. None of it is genuine. And the other thing is, Emily was going to court with the threat of losing money or maybe even a little respect from her neighbors or the people in her little society. She wasn't going to jail. Her lawyer was more than likely a shark, and also when you put things in context, money doesn't hold the same value to them. I mentioned this before, but money in the hands of Emily and Richard is just a tool to achieve this assholistic standard so they can feel better than everyone else. Money in the hands of someone like the average 9-to-5er, it means opportunity. Usually the opportunity is for survival. I discussed episode 13 in 2 of my other videos. In episode 14, Emily can never just ask a simple question, and no one can blame her trying to manipulate Rory into talking about her breakup on, well, Rory never tells her anything, because Rory is not the type to keep things from them. She actually has shown multiple times how honest she wants to be with them. She tells Emily last season about the termites, even against Lorelai telling her not to. And Emily doesn't know that her doing that caused issues between Rory and Lorelai because she wasn't there, and there's no mention of her knowing it caused a fight, so there's no reason to guilt trip her into anything. I'm sure if she would have just asked Rory, Rory would have just told her. So why the manipulation? Then she uses, as Lorelai points out, the sad moment as a way to get what she really wants, which is Jess coming over for dinner. This whole episode, I was like, man, what is going on with Jess? Like, this is not typical Jess. Something weird is going on here. I was like, man, Emily's gonna snap any second. Like, I just kept waiting and waiting. They kept leaving the table, and then he left and didn't say goodbye. I was like, oh man. I was so ready to applaud Emily. I was like, wow, she's really keeping her cool. But 2 things. One is that Emily is not usually the type to just fly off the handle screaming and yelling in front of company. Most of the time, if things are getting embarrassing for her and company is around, she'll just keep trying to change the subject, or she'll make like a snarky comment that sounds like normal talking. She withheld her fussing and dumped it all on Lorelai because she cares more about her reputation than anything. Jess was acting super weird though, but also Rory should have waited till after dinner to have that discussion with him. Lorelai was trying to thank Emily for being nice, and immediately Emily starts going off. Everything is always Lorelai's fault, even though we know how hard Lorelai fought against Rory and Jess. None of that matters. None of that matters. It's all Lorelai's fault. In episode 18, Lorelai was right. Emily's reaction was the reaction of narcissistic parents who have lost their narcissistic supply, or just a narcissist in general. It doesn't have to just be parents. Let me explain narcissistic supply in the most easiest way to understand. Basically, if I'm gonna be a farmer, I need pigs. I need horses. I need certain things to keep my farm afloat. When you're dealing with a narcissist, the most important thing to them is the ability to manipulate you. The most important things to them are the satisfaction they get from manipulating you. So by constantly keeping you in the loop and making you feel like they care, and then love bombing you, which is like a whole other thing I can try to explain in a different video that is not about a parent and child relationship, the most important thing to them is the ability to manipulate, to keep you on a back burner. That's why a lot of people keep themselves caught up with narcissists, because they keep thinking they can change them, that they can be spoken to in a way which they understand. People like Emily, people who are narcissists just in general, I'm not gonna diagnose Emily really, because she may not be a narcissist, but she just really fits under that whole description, which is why I use her for a reference. But people like that, the most common mistake I see people make, including myself, I've made this mistake a lot, is thinking that that you can change somebody who is a narcissist. And you can't. They have to have an experience that shapes how they continue to view the world. Not to say they're not capable of change at all, but the change has to come from them. And again, this is just my thoughts based off of the research I've done, okay? I don't know everything. So definitely enlighten me. I love to hear more about what people think about this whole subject. But that's why them getting that money back is such a big deal. That's why Richard tried to manipulate Lorelai into thinking that he told her not to tell Emily about the money. That's why it was such a big moment, because the puppet strings have been cut, okay? They have been cut, and that makes Emily very upset, because that is the only way that she keeps getting what she wants, is dangling this one thing. I mean, think about it. Even for the Thanksgiving dinner, Lorelai and Rory always have plans for Thanksgiving dinner, but that one where Emily decides that she wants them to come over, Lorelai does, because of the agreement. And Lorelai made a good point. For all the people who feel like it was out of pocket for her to do that at that time, or whoever has a problem with how Lorelai did that, I just answer that question that Lorelai was asking. Would it have been better for them to keep coming over under some kind of obligation instead of willingly? And another question is why? Why does Lorelai not feel comfortable just coming over her mother's house? Why does she not visit her? What about the environment makes Lorelai feel unsafe? That's where we have to stay focused. In some cases, I will say that it is about the action that is taken, and that should be something that people are held responsible for. But then a lot of times sometimes somebody's action, it may not make sense. It's a cry for help. It's them responding to what's happened to them. And I think that happens a lot with Lorelai, is that she'll be manipulated, abused, whatever. Everything will be done to her. And the moment that she has a response to it, then she's the bad guy. That is what you call reactive abuse, which is essentially where the narcissist or whoever you're dealing with in this super toxic environment, they are spewing at you all these terrible things. You're asking them to leave you alone. You're setting your boundaries. You are clearly drawing the line in the sand and telling them which lines not to cross, and they continue to do it up until you bubble up and you have an enormous response. And then as soon as you do, they try to point that on, oh, see, that's where you're a bad person. You're a bad person. They keep trying to flip it back on you instead of thinking about where you or how you got to that point. A lot of people do that. A lot of people bully other people, and then when the other person snaps, then it's like, oh no, they're a bad person. They're a bad person. No, what made them start doing that in the first place? What made them react to something that way? And I'm not saying that gives you a pass. If somebody just, makes you upset one day, steps on your shoe, then that means, go off and go ballistic. That's not what I'm trying to say here. But I'm saying that a lot of times people focus so much on the reaction, they don't try to get behind why there was such an explosive reaction. Emily was not even listening to Lorelai. Lorelai was kind about it. She felt like she owed them and she wanted her freedom back. What she said to Rory was exactly right. Even if she had done it the next day, it was never gonna go over well. Even if she had carefully planned out a time and told them okay, at 3 o'clock, meet me at Luke's and I'll give you the money back that I already said I was gonna give you anyway, and this is literally a loan, and all this stuff is crazy that's happening because you have all these stipulations, but I'm still required to pay you the money back, so you need to stop. Lorelai has to choose herself, because following what they want from her makes her feel trapped. In episode 20, their phone conversation really broke my heart, because it's just so clear that Lorelai just wants to talk to her and mend whatever rift was created, and Emily is just stuck on losing her control over her, that she can't even connect with her daughter. She's determined to just be angry about Lorelai not being able to be forced into coming to see her. They hate boundaries, I'm telling you guys. In episode 21, another episode with Emily being avoidant. It must be exhausting to avoid things as hard as Emily does. It must be a full-time job. And then not Emily trying to talk to Rory about her mother and being shocked that Rory told her the truth about herself. It was stupid. She got mad and tried to keep Lorelai from staying for dinner, all because she paid them back for the loan. No, don't come to my house and have dinner. How dare you, after doing exactly what I asked of you. How dare you, you buffoon. In episode 22, the last episode we have to talk about today, look at the smile on Emily's face as Rory walks away after asking for the loan. Oh my god. Some would just interpret the smile as, oh, she's happy. She's agreed to come back to Friday night dinners, but nope. I've always seen that scene as kind of like when a fly rubs its hands together, or like when the villain in the story twirls their handlebar mustache. But honestly, in this episode, I think that them getting Rory a car was pretty sweet. I think that the problem is that it's just such a generational disconnect, is that the word I want to use? I don't even know. In Emily's world, people from her generation always feel entitled to overstep. They don't believe in divorce. You could even pull from Sex and the City, Bunny Dougal, Trey's mother. When Charlotte and Trey are officially divorced, Charlotte is just trying to maintain a place to live, and Bunny, completely in spite, tells Charlotte that her reasons for divorce aren't valid because women in her day stood by their men through the most foul exhibits of disrespect. I've read a lot of comments where people have tried to add more insight, and while I still feel like Emily is manipulative, I think that if the story is about her feeling like she has such a disconnect with Lorelai and her wanting better for their relationship, I wish they would have shown Emily behind the scenes, like maybe talking to other people or something, trying to connect with Lorelai and trying to find ways to connect with her, because when we don't have stuff like that, like I always say, it makes it harder to empathize. But maybe that's the point. I mean, that's the beauty of writing, is that it can be interpreted so many different ways. Like my interpretation of this show is not necessarily maybe what was intended. Like maybe there's just certain parts of the puzzle I just don't have. I want to thank everybody so much for watching and for joining back for another video. I always appreciate that you guys give me the grace and let me have a hiatus when I need it, and just are always right here when I get back, and that just makes me feel a lot better about this and doing this as my full-time job. The support is always so heartwarming, and I am forever appreciative. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Honestly, who knows when that'll be, because this video is literally 6 months apart from when it's 6 months apart from the last installment for this Emily Gilmore manipulation series, and I apologize for that. Honestly, I saw a lot of the comments where people were asking when the next one was coming out. I don't like to tell people when I have another video coming out because stuff just happens. Like, stuff really just happens. Sometimes I try to upload a video, Wi-Fi sucks, won't upload. It's just a bunch of different things that happen, but I do want to get more on a schedule because I do want you guys to be able to look forward to things and know when things are coming. But I don't know, let me know what you guys think about that, about me actually announcing dates for videos. Like, are you guys more on the side of if you announce a date, cool, if not cool, or are you guys kind of like, we need the dates, you know, like, or, you know, just kind of want to know you guys' stance on that. Can't wait to see you guys in the next one.